Alright guys, in this video we are going to be creating the puzzle cube assembly. We are first going to start off by creating all of the individual parts along with the actual assembly file and then creating an exploded assembly. This is going to be pretty simple, so let's go ahead and get started. When you open up Inventor, you're going to make sure that you click on a brand new standard IPT file. When this opens up, let's go ahead and create a sketch. And for this blue part, we're going to start on the XY plane. Since most of the geometries are really simple, all I'm going to do is create a few rectangles. I want to start off by creating the general shape and then adding the dimensions. For this is going to be 3 inches wide. This section here is going to be 1. And then if you have this happen, don't freak out. Just click and drag so it moves out of the way. And then we can go ahead and dimension the rest. This is also going to be 1 inch tall by 1 inch wide. After you have that, finish your sketch and go ahead and extrude. This is going to be 1 inch, and then we will add the little section on the front by creating a new sketch here and clicking Create Sketch. I'm going to project my geometry by clicking on the front and then creating a rectangle from this corner down. Oops, let me undo that. Creating a rectangle from this corner down to this bottom corner on the origin. Select Finish and Extrude. And there you go. There's the blue part. So let's go ahead and change the color. In this, I'm just going to type in S and find Sky Blue Dark, and I can go ahead and save this. This is going to be labeled blue, and I'm going to name it number 2 because I've already drawn the parts individually already. Let's go ahead and create a new file. This is going to be another standard IPT. And I'm going to create the red part. From this one, instead of starting on the XY plane, I'm going to start on the XZ plane. Pay attention to how the plane rotates. As you can see, it rotates 90 degrees to the right. So, all I'm going to do is go ahead and draw a square and a square. Once I have those two squares drawn, I'm going to give it some dimension. This one square is 1 inch, this one square is 1 inch, this one is 2, and this part is 2. Okay, so there are those dimensions. Let's go ahead and extrude this. I'm going to extrude both sections by 1. Okay, after I have this, I'm going to create another sketch on top. I'm going to project my geometry, and I'm going to make some rectangles. A square goes right here, and another square goes right here. Now all I have to do is just dimension, and if you get an error dialog box that pops up like this, just go ahead and say OK or cancel. And let's put in another dimension. This square here is 1 inch by 1 inch, and this square here is 1 inch. So once you have those two squares, you can go ahead and extrude. Make sure that you select both squares, and they are extruded by 1 inch. Where this part is going to be red, so I'm just going to hit the R for red, scroll down and find red, and I can go ahead and save this as red. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. This one is going to be yellow, and we're going to start again on the XZ plane. Pay attention to how it rotates. It rotated 90 to the right, so all I'm going to do is make my rectangle come out this way. This is going to be 1 inch by 3 inches. Go ahead and finish the sketch, extrude it, by 1 inch and say OK. Next, we're going to go ahead and add our next part here. Create a new sketch there. Project your geometry. Create a rectangle. And you can over-exaggerate this if you'd like. This is going to be 1 inch by 2 inches tall. Once you have that, go ahead and extrude. And this is going to be 1 inch. And this color is yellow. Go ahead and save that as yellow. And we have 2 more parts to draw. Create a new drawing or a new part file, standard IPT. And we are going to create the green part. Now the green part, we're just going to start on the XY plane. And we're going to start with the back face or the back section first. I'm going to create my rectangle that goes up. This is going to be 1 inch wide by 2 inches tall. And as you guys can see, I didn't connect it to the origin. I'm going to use my coincident constraint up here. Click on that. Find the center point or the midpoint of this line and connect it to the center point of my drawing. And that locks it into place. And go ahead and say Finish Sketch, Extrude, and we are extruding it by 1 inch. Once you have that, we're going to create a new sketch here on the front. And we're going to repeat the process, but with a rectangle lying down. This rectangle is 3 by 1. And we are going to connect it, find the midpoint, and connect it to the origin. Once you have that, we're going to go ahead and extrude by 1 inch. And that is it for this part. And we're going to go ahead and say that this is green. Now green is hard to find, so you're going to find it in the S's under smooth, dark forest green. Once you have that, save it. And let's move on to the last piece, which is purple. Standard IPT, and we are going to be moving pretty quick. We're starting on the origin, and we are creating a 3 inch tall rectangle by 1 inch wide. And we're going to go ahead and extrude that by 1 inch. And then we are going to create another rectangle on this front face. Right click, new sketch, project my geometry so I make sure that everything lines up. And this is a 2 inch by 1 inch rectangle. And we're going to extrude this, the whole thing, by 1 inch. And there you go. Let's change the color to purple. And I think you can find purple. Oh, we have to look in the S's for smooth purple. Okay. Once you have that, go ahead and save this as, oops, purple. All right. So let's go ahead and create the puzzle cube. Now putting the parts together, the actual assembly file, is relatively easy. It's just a matter of finding which one do we want to start with. So I think the drawing that I gave you guys had this as the front view, and this is what we're going to go with. So we're going to start right here with our red part and then build everything around the red part. Okay, so go ahead and start a brand new standard IAM. Make sure that you choose an assembly file, and then we're going to go ahead and start placing our different parts. So finding the first part to place is the most important thing. So when you click on your part, you're going to find it, click on it, then click open, but don't do anything yet. You're going to rotate your view so you can see it isometrically, and you can see that we have our 3D triad pop up, or our 3D indicator. It's showing us our X, our Y, and our Z. And we are going to rotate this around our X axis until we find something that resembles what the front view looks like. So you're going to rotate it around the x-axis 3 times. And all I did was right click and then click on rotate x 90 degrees. Once you have done that, then you're going to right click again and click place grounded at origin. Now what this does is that it locks it into place at the origin. So once you have that placed, go ahead and right click and say OK. And now if I try to grab this and move it around, nothing happens. Next, go to place. And I'm going to multi-select, and I don't know if that option is available to you guys, but if it is, you can multi-select or you can bring them in individually. If you bring them in all together, they're going to be clumped up like this, and that's fine. And you can see that it's going to try and place as many as possible all at once, but we don't want that. We only needed one. So go ahead and say, or right click and click OK, and we only needed one. So, oops, I accidentally brought in another red. I don't need it, so I can delete it. And here are my 4 different parts that are going to go attached to my red part. Now here is where we are learning new buttons. The first one that you guys are going to learn is free rotate. When you click on free rotate, you can click any of the individual selected items, and we can rotate them to our desired location. Now finding how to use the free rotate takes a little bit of practice, but you'll get it. You'll get the hang of it. So once you have it in this, general shape, that's fine. That's what we want. We're going to go ahead and say, or right click and click OK. Next, we're going to attach this to this part. We're going to click constrain. And here we have a bunch of different options in this dialog box. The one that we're going to choose, we're not going to actually choose anything. We're just going to select corners or edges. So this edge here, I'm going to click that and connect it to this edge here. And you guys see that it moved into that proper location. Okay, so click apply. And then I'm going to see if I can find this edge here and connect it to this edge here. So once I have that edge highlighted, hopefully everything moves into place and we can click apply. Now, to find out if you need to add any more constraints, all you need to do is click and drag and see if this part moves. And if it does, then you need to add more constraints. But you can see that mine doesn't, so I don't need to add anything else. So let's move on to the next part. The next one that I'm going to add is my purple piece. So I'm going to click on free rotate, click on my purple piece, and rotate it to where I kind of sort of get it in this position here. Okay. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and click on constrain. I'm going to find this top edge or this corner here and line it up with this top edge or corner of my blue part and click apply. And here's a problem that you might run into is that when it moves around, it might look like it's stuck inside the part. All you need to do is cancel out of the constrain panel, or I'm sorry, the constrain dialog box, and just move it around. And you can readjust how the part is positioned. Let's go back to constrain. Click on these different edges and make sure that everything is lined up and everything is in its proper place. All right. The last part that we are going, or the next part that we're going to add is our yellow piece. And I want to maneuver the piece into this general view. Okay. So once I have that, I'm going to click on constrain. I'm going to click on this edge here and I'm going to constrain it to this edge. Okay, apply that. And then I'm going to constrain this edge to this edge and apply. And I think that's all I need to do, and it is perfectly fully constrained. One of the other ways that you can tell that it's perfectly fully constrained is that this little dot will be filled in. So the last one that we haven't done anything to is green, and so that's why the green dot hasn't clearly been or fully been filled in. All right, so let's rotate this around. So we're looking at this backside. Now, when we see something like this in this particular view, it is kind of hard to see what's going on. So I'm going to change how I see things. I'm going to go up here to my View tab, and then I'm going to change my visual style. The visual style that I'm going to choose is shaded with edges. And now you can see that there are edges here. You can also choose, I don't know, wireframe, but that's like doesn't make any sense. You can also choose watercolor, and you can kind of see some other things. Choose sketch illustration, technical illustration, and a bunch of different other things you guys can play around with, but I'm actually just going to keep it on shaded with edges. Okay, so this green part is going to have to fit inside here and line up. So I'm going to go back to my Assemble tab, click on Free Rotate, and rotate it so that way my part looks something like this. So once you have that, we're going to go ahead and constrain it. We're going to click on this edge here and click on this edge and click Apply, and then click on this edge and click on this edge, click Apply, and one last one here and here, and we have a fully constrained puzzle cube. So once you have that, go ahead and click and save this as your puzzle cube assembly. Um, I just said puzzle, oop, I misspelled puzzle cube. So I'm changing this to puzzle cube new. Okay, that's just me. You can save it as puzzle cube and click on save. All right, one last part before we move on, and that is to make an exploded assembly. So go ahead and click on New up at the top, and we are going to choose Standard IPN. Once you have that open, it's going to ask you, which puzzle cube do you want to start with? So this is my previous one that I created earlier, and this is the one that I'm working on right now, Puzzle Cube New. So I'm going to click on that and click Open. Okay, so looking at this screen, it looks a lot like an animation screen. You can see that it has a timeline down here, and you have a bunch of different stuff going on. The only thing that we really need to focus on is this button right here that says Tweak Components. So once you click on Tweak Components, you're just going to click on the individual parts, and you'll see that the 3D triad pops up, and you can click and drag the arrows to their proper locations. So I'm going to click and drag my blue piece, and I'm going to type in -4, and that moves it in the X direction -4 inches. Then I'm going to click on my red piece. Oh, I need to tweak components again. Click on my red piece, and I'm going to move it in the -Z direction 4 inches. Okay? And then we're just going to work our way around the puzzle cube, and I'm just going to type in -4. And I'm going to leave my yellow piece as my main piece and work my way, or have all of my pieces touch my yellow part. Okay, so once you have this, that's pretty much it. We have our 5 pieces fully exploded. And you're like, well, what do we do now? Well, this is what's cool about the presentation file. is you can play it. So if we play it in the forward direction, it's removing everything. If we play it in the reverse direction, it puts everything back together. And there it goes. All right. So really this is the only thing that I needed to see. And I can look at the different directions, see what goes where, which is the best view to get a good idea of how this puzzle cube goes together. But this is probably the best view for it. So I'm going to save this as my puzzle cube assembly IPN. And that's it. If you guys have any additional questions, make sure that you ask me. But I hope you got everything that you need from this. Thanks, guys.